Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Totalbiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Symphony? Symphony Liberate Your Music is a game by Empty Clip, and they challenge you to liberate your music from evil demons that have somehow trapped the souls of the composers. I don't know how or why. Seems like a very contrived way to be evil and demonic, but hey, we'll go with it. This is a music-based shooter. Not the first one. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, I played a game called Beat Hazard. It was, in fact, part of a short-lived series which eventually became WTF Is, called Irresponsible Reviews. There were two games, I think, in that series. One was Beat Hazard, and the other one was Transformers War for Cybertron. Well, we're going to have a look at Symphony and see if it can improve on this emergent genre. There have been quite a few music-based games, but very few which actually involve shooting, and indeed Beat Hazard is the only other one I can think of. There's probably others, but still. So this game does come with music from artists by default, so if you don't happen to have any music or you just want to listen to some new stuff, well, they've got some pretty good stuff here with some variety, but of course, this game is all about using your music. So let us continue, shall we? Played a couple of games of this just to get it started, and we can go through my music collection. So, those wanting to know about my soundtrack collection, here's part of it. This is not all of it, but it is indeed part of it, and it's fairly reasonable. If I recall correctly, I've also got my OC Remix stuff in here, which is actually what we're going to go look for. I'm making the assumption that my OC Remix is actually on that drive. It very well might not be. Yeah, it is. There it is. So you see some DJ Pretzel stuff going on there. We'll start with some big giant circles, I think. There's a great number of very, very good tracks by big giant circles. So we're going to filter by artist. Nope. No, we're not. Okay, let's get it right. Double click. There we go. Alright, so here's stuff that I have by big giant circles that was posted on the wondrous site, ocremix.org, which you should go and check out. It's got some good stuff. Let's do Unreal Tournament Club Showdown. This is one of my favorites, so we can give that a shot. Now, before we do that, you can edit your ship. So this is an interesting part of the game. There is progression in this game. You get random item drops, some of which are quite rare, and you can equip them to your ship. This is a subwoofer. Subwoofer is actually a weapon in this game. Can only equip one of those at a time because I only have one of them, but I can also customize it just a little bit. I could change the direction in which it fires if I so desire, so I could design one of my weapons to take out enemies over to the side if I feel that I'm focusing too far forward, and I can also control it with my left or right button, as you can see there. In this case, you're, I believe, only allowed to leave it on normal fire mode, but it is possible to get stuff like torpedoes and things, admittedly they're going to look a little bit weird, that you can launch with your right mouse button and have a little bit of control. Alright, let's do it then, shall we? The other thing you can look at is the Symphony, which is essentially your completion rate, but there's a little storyline to the game, and there's actually some involvement with demons. They occasionally come up and mock you, and you have to fight them, which is kind of neat. But aside from that, it's mostly a case of play the songs that you want, so let us go, shall we? Alright. So, as you can see, the music is not exactly what I'd call intense at the start. Not at all. Indeed, why would it be? Because the track is not intense yet. But it does get more intense as you go through, as you can imagine. That's going to have visual effects. It's also going to have some fairly significant gameplay effects. Once this thing starts going, things are going to get pretty intense. It also does things like sync up the spawns of the enemies with the beat. It even does some very neat stuff, like if it finds a particularly awesome part of the song, then it will cause your weapons to pulse. Like my subwoofer there would actually fire out a huge attack, which would do even more damage and hit a wider area. Now, what the game wants you to do is pick up all of this stuff, which is classified as inspiration. That's what gives you score in this game, and you can also pick up power-ups to repair your ship and gain additional power. Try to avoid the weapons as they come out there. Find these little sort of photon torpedoes at you. The waves come in from the side, and if you're actually paying any attention, which would be very, very difficult to do, I've got to say, if you happen to be playing the game rather than just watching it, you'll see the enemies, you can see when they're coming in. They actually come in from the side, they're in the background, and then they come onto the game screen there, which is pretty neat, but as far as I'm concerned, absolutely impossible to pay attention to if you're focusing on what's going on in the center here. And colors have a tendency of changing around, bearing in mind what the intensity of the song is. Now, you can't actually lose in this game. You die quite a lot, but you lose score by doing so. Really, really difficult to take this guy out, and as we saw in the item loadouts earlier, it might have made more sense to have one of my weapons fire sideways in order to deal with these guys, but at the start of the game, I didn't have to deal with anything coming in from the side of that size at all, so there are a fairly wide variety of enemies and boss types that actually do come in at you. Now, the game syncs itself really well to the music, actually, and if we're going to start making comparisons to Beat Hazard, which I think is fairly valid considering it's the same genre of game, then what I can say is that I think that this game's music interpretation engine is better. I think that it interprets the music in a way that makes sense, and the music affects the game more than it does in Beat Hazard. In Beat Hazard, what really happens is, at least the only major notable thing that you can see, there are a few subtleties here and there, but the background and the color of your weapons pulses to the music, so there's a very cool beat aspect going on there. But the big thing is that as the music intensifies, your weapons get more powerful. Here, that's not necessarily the case, which is quite nice, because you were punished for playing songs that had a lot of crescendos and decrescendos and things like that. Here, the enemies spawn faster, the game gets more intense, but you also gain more firepower and things like that in the process, and your weapons don't get stupidly underpowered if there happens to be a quiet part of the song, which is pretty neat. What I will say as well is that even though Beat Hazard is a very beautiful game, it gets a lot of its prettiness from straight-up particle effects. This game actually has a nice unified design to it, whereby everything looks good. It's got this really nice wireframe colored design that looks vibrant, it looks absolutely fantastic pretty much all of the time, whereas Beat Hazard, it's got amazing particle effects. In fact, some would say too amazing. You actually have to turn them down at some point because it just gets too bright. It gives you a sodding headache from the craziness that's going on the screen. But here, you've got everything nicely unified. In Beat Hazard, the ship designs and things like that are pretty damn ugly, honestly. It's only the particle effects from the weapons and things that really make the game shine and look awesome. Here, the whole damn thing looks awesome. However, there is, of course, a downside to that, so I continue to get hit. It is possible to lose the enemy attacks in all of the crazy nonsense that's going on the screen. It is not easy to see enemy attacks coming in at you necessarily, especially bearing in mind those enemy attacks can be the same color as the attacks that you're throwing out there. I don't think there's sufficient distinction, and because the screen is very, very busy, whereas the screen is often quite clean on Beat Hazard with the attacks being very much distinguished from the models of the enemies, it has a tendency of looking a lot better as a result. Alright, so the game does have another issue. Now, as far as I can tell, it seems to be isolated to my machine and a couple of others. I've heard some reports about it, but it's not widespread. This game crashes quite a lot. Now, I had two other people test this for me, my graphic designer and my wife. Neither of them have this problem, so I would say that it's probably fairly isolated. I imagine it might be related to the NVIDIA beta drivers that I'm using, and I would think that it would get resolved quite quickly. Alright, let's continue, shall we? Play something else. Well, that was by Big Giant Circles. Let's see what else we can find. We can filter by artist, filter by album. Maybe do a bit of Ares Extinction Agenda. This is by Hyperduck Studios. These guys are pretty cool. Hyperduck Soundworks, in fact. Junkyard, level 1. Yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that one. I like to try some different genres out just to see how well they actually perform. Now, I believe it's also possible to upgrade the items that you've got. Let's see what I can do here. It's level 1 at the moment. I could change it to Blaster. I'd like to actually change this, though. Yeah, that's not really relevant. It did say that you could upgrade your items. I'm just trying to figure out how to actually do that. It's not under options. Subwoofer. You can see it right there. I don't want to select a new item. I want to upgrade this one. But it's not letting me do that for some reason. Which is really weird. I've got a bunch of points and I'm not really sure what to do with them at present. Oh well, never mind. We shall go forth. Now here, the weaker your ship is, as you can see, the higher your score multiplier. So it does give you that additional bit of difficulty right there without overly compromising your shooter experience, which is quite nice. But I would really like to change that. You know, I'm probably going to alter 2 of my blasters. So I can have one going in this direction. No, that one actually runs up against that, so that's not going to work. Let's try that. There we go. Alright, so at least I can shoot in either direction now and deal with that. Okay, wonderful. Sounds good to me. And I think we're good. Alright. Let's give it another shot, shall we? Now, as you can see, I can now fire sideways, which is a fairly neat feature. I like that customization. That's pretty awesome. Unfortunately, if you lose parts of your ship, it becomes significantly less awesome. But if you collect more inspiration, you can rebuild your ship. So it's not too shabby. Not overly difficult to pull off. Cool system, though. I mean, the Beat Hazard also has a progression system, but it's done slightly differently. It's an awful lot of passives for the most part, and score multipliers and things like that, and the ability to start with additional power. Here, you actually get to pick weapons. You do in Beat Hazard Ultra. That's something I've got to say. If you did see my original video on Beat Hazard, this was before the Ultra DLC came out. Beat Hazard Ultra actually does have some customizable weapons, although not quite as much as this game does. This game is super hectic, I might add. Enemies all over the bloody place. I definitely don't like it when the background goes red, because most of the enemy attacks also seem to be red, so it gets a little bit difficult to distinguish. I had no excuse for that. I just ran into it because I'm an idiot, but hey. Alright, take them out. There we go. So at least looking a little bit better now. Less crazy element of it. When you destroy a wave, you actually do get a chain, which is really rather important for your score, as you can see. And you'll notice those big pulses there. This is what I was mentioning earlier. If it finds a particularly prominent part of the music, then more often than not, it actually does turn some of your attacks into these big pulses. And some weapons are very much music-driven. The blasters don't seem to be, but the subwoofer definitely is. In fact, it would be awesome. I don't know if this is true, but it would be awesome if the subwoofer is actually affected by the bass. If it detected excessive bass frequencies, if it gave more power to the subwoofer. I don't know if it does, honestly. It would make sense if it did, but I don't know if the algorithm's actually that advanced. We'll see. One way or the other, this game is super pretty and does, of course, have a metric ton of replay value, as pretty much any of these custom music rhythm-based games do. People played Audio Surf until the end of time. They played a ton of Beat Hazard until they burned their retinas out with the crazy amount of nonsense that was going on the screen at any given time. Symphony seems to do a really good job here as well, and this is definitely a game worth looking into. It's not easy. This is only the second of 6 difficulty levels, and it's already crazy hectic. Obviously, it's a little bit more difficult with me focusing on commentary. I think I might do one more track after this, just so you can see it played a little bit better without me talking. Of course, you can also listen to some amazing music as well. I'm going to see if I can find that Deus Ex remix, Siren Synapse. That's absolutely fan-bloody-tastic, god damn it! Wow. So much stuff. So much stuff. It also really tempts you to go out of your way to try and get all of that stuff on the screen and then run into enemies in the process. I would love to be able to pay attention to what's going on over the side here, but I just don't see how I possibly could. One other minor complaint with the graphic design is that they decided to put reflections on things, which it obfuscates clarity, which is not really what you want. I think in a game like this, where you've got so much stuff going on the screen at any given time, you've got to be very, very clear where the enemies are, where the attacks are, and where you are. Those reflections on the back, while they look really, really nice, I have to wonder if you can turn them off in the options, actually, make it just a little bit more difficult to distinguish what's going on the screen. It makes the screen busier and less clear. But it is a minor complaint overall. I think you can very much get used to that, and the aesthetic is just so pretty, I don't even know if I would want to turn it off, even if it does give me a disadvantage in the game. I mean, hell, you know, it's not a hardcore game by any stretch of the imagination. Who cares? It looks amazing, so why break that? Speaking of breaking, the game crashed again, which means I probably didn't get the benefit from that. That's a real problem for me with this game, needless to say, but it's not a problem that seems to be affecting a lot of people. Alright, folks, last part of this video, we're going to do one song without me talking at all. So I'm going to try and focus and get the best score that I possibly can. I'll probably still get owned, but hey, we'll go with it. Before I go on, I'd like to point out this game is $9.99 on Steam. Not a bad price. £6.99 or €9.99 in Tier 1. Tier 2 gets it cheaper. I'd also like to point out this game is on GOG, and it's $9.99 regardless of where you are in the world. So if you're in Europe, you save a significant amount of cash if you buy from GOG, and of course it is DRM free, it's not tied to Steam or anything along those lines, but you can still use the same leaderboards and all that good stuff. So I would suggest, if you're in Europe, that you do pick it up from GOG. Why not? Why would you pay more? I can't imagine. Alright, one last song. I think, by the looks of it, like, I've ended up losing all of the progress that I had because the game keeps crashing, which is incredibly annoying. I'd like to show you more items and upgrades and things like that, but I just simply cannot do it with the crashes at the moment. As you can see here, it is possible to turn some of these options off, which might make it a little easier to actually see what's going on, but we're going to leave it on full for the moment. Audio options are, needless to say, reasonable. And you've also got input here. I had to turn the mouse sensitivity up quite high in order to properly play this game. So I've got my DPI on 3200, I think, with my SteelSeries mouse, and I am also at sensitivity 90. So otherwise, your ship just moves too slowly as far as I'm concerned. All right, I'm going to try and find one very specific track for you that I really, really like. This one. This is the one. This song kicks ass. This is a remix of one of the best themes from one and only Deus Ex. It's the theme from the Hong Kong level. And this is actually remixed by Big Giant Circles and the guy who did the composition for it in the first place, Alexander Brandon. This game is awesome, and the track is incredible, so let's play it. I'm going to shut up now. Enjoy the rest of Symphony, folks. And remember to check it out over on Steam or on Gamersgate.
I don't understand. What do you want? You're just a machine.